Progress.
What's going on, college hoops heads? This is another episode of the One and Done podcast with Stephen Bagel and John Simpson. We are joined today by a very special guest, a guest who not only we are excited about, but we had been anticipating a big year out of his team, and that's why, we had to have him on. It's Coach Wes Flanigan from Ole Miss. Coach, how are you doing today?
Doing really good, man. Really good. Having a great time here in Oxford, one of the best college towns in America, and just getting our team ready for a great season this year.
Of course. The season's about a little less than 2 weeks away, and you said you have an exhibition coming up. Is that correct?
Yes, we play Tusculum on Monday night.
Okay.
And, we're excited to get our guys out there in front of the fans and, see how much better we've grown and developed, man, over the summer and, obviously this fall.
Of course. So let me start with my first question. John and I, we really wanted to have you on, not only because obviously you're a great coach, but we are super high on Ole Miss. We just did our SEC preview about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. We both had SEC, or we both had Ole Miss in the upper half of the SEC. And then, of course, KenPom rankings came out, and I believe KenPom actually had Ole Miss ranked last out of every team in the SEC. So why are John and I correct, and why is KenPom wrong?
Well, to start the season off, man, you can take out all the rankings. That's just for verbiage. That's just for talk, for conversation. At the end of the day, it comes down to, having players that execute the game plan. We're here to win. Obviously, we got one of the greatest basketball minds in college basketball in Chris Beard. I love our staff. I think we have one of the best, staffs in college basketball. And we got some veteran players, man, that I think are ready to kind of take a turn. Jamin Brakefield and Matt Morrell are two guys that got a lot of experience in this league, in the SEC, one of the best conferences in the country. And I think they're ready to get to winning. They've worked really hard to kind of set the tone for our whole group this summer. And I'm just excited, man, to, get a chance to play against somebody else besides ourselves, which we've been doing, for about 5 months. And, see how this thing turns out. The last time I was with Chris Beard, we had another team that wasn't picked to do much. And we end up winning the most games in conference history. And we hope to do the same thing here at Ole Miss.
Okay.
And Coach Flanigan, you kind of talked about how, you were with Coach Beard before at Texas Tech, and then, most recently you've been at Auburn with Coach Pearl, which is another coach that, I think me and Stephen both really respect.
Right.
Has really accomplished a lot at that program. And, what was it like going from being at Auburn? I know it's your alma mater, coaching with Coach Pearl, and then, getting back with Coach Beard and moving to Ole Miss for this team, that is really kind of a rebuilding process.
Right. It was a difficult decision, but I wouldn't say it was as difficult as a lot of people, probably look on the outside and looking in. I had a great experience at Auburn. Don't get me wrong. Bruce Pearl has done a heck of a job with that program. Maybe one of the best coaching jobs, man, in college basketball history. When he got there, man, that program was, down in the dumps. It hadn't won in about 12 to 15 years. And he turned that into a Final Four contender. My deal, is if it can be done at Auburn, and I was a former player there, I know how hard it is. I know where it was when Bruce got there. But I also know this, being a assistant coach at a junior college here in Mississippi, probably about 40 minutes from here in Senatobia. There was a great run here in Oxford, with Rob Evans and Rob Barnes. And I was around during that time. And so, I kind of grew fond of this program. My brother played here. It's a little bit closer to home. Obviously, man, me and Coach Beard, we got an unbelievable relationship, as well as some other staff members that came along with him. I actually played some traveling ball with Al Pinkins when we came out of college. Me and Brian Berg were on the same staff at Little Rock that won all those games. And so, coming here, man, there was some familiar faces. Allen Green came here from Auburn as well. Keith Carter's a guy from Arkansas that I competed against. I was a year older than him in AAU basketball. And so a lot of familiar faces. Chris Beard called to me, and saying he needed me. After him giving me a chance to be a head coach when a lot of people of my color don't get that opportunity. I couldn't let the man down. Loyalty is a big part of me and my family and how we were raised. And when he called and wanted me to come to Ole Miss, knowing what I knew about this program, having that fondness in my heart, it was kind of a no-brainer for me. It's a new challenge. And a guy like me that's been in the business as long as I have, we always looking for different challenges. This was a challenge, and it's one that I'm stretching my arms out and I embellish.
So, as John alluded to, you coach with, and you also alluded to, Coach, you and Coach Beard have, been on the same bench before, essentially. That first started at Little Rock before you ended up taking that head coaching job after he got the position at Texas Tech. So
Right.
I suppose my question is, you were an assistant on that staff for Little Rock. That was, I believe, a 12 seed when you upset Purdue, who was a 5 that year. And then obviously, you were on the Auburn bench where you beat Kansas, Kentucky, and UNC. You were the first team you made the Final Four, but you were the first team ever to beat the 3 most winningest programs, in college basketball history, all in the same tournament to get to the Final Four. How different is it, obviously kind of game planning as the underdog, or at least the perceived underdog, giving you a 12 seed going against a 5, as opposed to, Auburn, which, won, as you said, it was historic run, what Bruce Pearl's been doing over at Auburn. So how does that kind of difference?
Well, it's not different for me. All my life I've been kind of counted out. All my life I've been overlooked. I was a guy that, didn't even start a high school game until my senior year, but I was on a great high school team. All I know is, man, to put my head down and work. And Chris Beard is very similar, and a lot of guys on our staff are the same way. The numbers don't matter. What everybody thinks on the outside does not matter. What does matter is what those people believe in that locker room. What people believe in themselves, and that's what we're trying to instill into our guys. Everybody puts their pants on the same way, so to speak, is what my dad always told me, one leg at a time. And so you should never feel inferior to anybody. And we don't here. Not one person in this program does, and we're trying to instill that into our team, and we'll get that accomplished. Our guys will come out, they'll play hard, they'll execute. They won't feel like anybody is more prepared than them when they go out there on the floor, and we'll come to win. We won't come to just be okay or just play the game close. We're gonna come to win, and we'll put our best foot forward in that area every game.
You talked about some of your experiences as, being on the bench as an assistant coach, and then some of your stops where you've had an opportunity to be a head coach, which is, at any level is an amazing accomplishment. What would you say it's like, the differences in kind of your philosophy and as being an assistant coach compared to being a head coach?
Yeah. I think the one thing I learned, being a head coach is you can't assume. I think that's the biggest thing that I learned, those 2-3 years that I was at Little Rock. You can't assume. You can't assume that, your staff knows what you want. You can't assume that your players understand what your philosophy is. You have to do an unbelievable job of communicating. I think, 2 important ingredients of a head coach is you have to be a great communicator. And then number 2, you got to be able to manage people. And I think that's one of the best things that Coach Beard does. He empowers us to be who we are, but he's great at managing people. There's not one person in our organization that doesn't understand what his job is, what he has to do on a day-to-day basis in order to make this organization work. And that's the one thing that, and one of the biggest reasons I'm back with him right now, to continue to soak up that information. I was only with him for 7 months. I didn't think it was going to be that quick. But I learned a lot in a year from him. I've learned from Bruce Pearl. I've been around a lot of great head coaches. Mike Davis, Doc Sally. I've learned and took a little bit. I've been in college basketball now 25 years. My dad is a Hall of Fame high school coach. This is all I know, man. If you ask me to change a flat tire right now, I couldn't do it. I would have to go read a book. It might take me 2 or 3 hours. I would get the job done, but it would take a while. But at the end of the day, this basketball thing is something that runs deep, through me. But throughout my whole life, career as a basketball player, as a coach, there's been one experience that stuck out to me the most. Obviously, being a former player at Auburn, being able to go back to my alma mater, play in the Final Four, which is something I dreamed of, that was special. But nothing was more special, man, than the year I had at Little Rock with Chris Beard, and I'm trying to achieve that feeling again, man. I'm almost like a little crackhead. I want to feel the same way I felt when we won that Sun Belt Conference championship. I want to feel the same way I felt when we beat Purdue, because I love that underdog role. I love people telling us that we can't do something, and then you make them. You make them wrong. And so we're here to do that here at Ole Miss. We're here to win. And I'm excited about that challenge.
So I suppose my next question is kind of a two-part question. The first question I have is, obviously in college basketball, recruiting is a big aspect of everything, the program does, especially at a program like Ole Miss. How exactly has recruiting changed due to NIL? And how has, kind of the transfer portal changed things in a sense? Because, so much before the transfer portal really became a thing, it was so reliant on, freshmen coming in and making an impact. Now, okay, you could kind of rebuild a program on the fly, if you will, with, getting transfers that are automatically eligible a lot of the time. I know you guys may have some waiver issues with some of your guys. I'm not sure the status of that, but so I suppose my question is, how has NIL impacted recruiting, and how different is a recruiting transfers who you've already seen at the high major level compared to, freshmen coming out of high school?
Man, that's a tough question. I'm an old dinosaur, as you can see. I got as much gray hair in this beard in my head as I do this shirt. I've been around a long time, but I will say this: over 25 years, there's never been as much change in college athletics as we're going through right now, as we speak. Coming out of COVID, our whole world has been turned out upside down. There's a lot of things that's hit us. Number one, you talked about it. You mentioned, name, image, and likeness. Number two, you mentioned the transfer portal. These are two things, man, that a lot of us kind of heard about, but we didn't think it was going to come into effect like immediately. And that's kind of what's happened. In my opinion, I don't think there's enough experience to go around right now with name, image, and likeness to really be able to help anybody understand it right now. I know for us as a staff, we kind of have, an idea of what we're trying to do. But it's almost like professional basketball or football or baseball now. Us as a staff, we have a bucket of possible cash. We have some outside entities where some of our local people get involved with guys. But at the end of the day, my thought process during the recruiting process still goes back to relationships. No matter how much name, image, and likeness it is or involved, you still have to go back to relationships. You have to still go back to, mothers and fathers trusting you, with their most prized possession, their child. And so I worked that really hard. I try to do the best I can with all the new things that are coming at us, whether it be the transfer portal and, whether or not, maybe taking a transfer freshman is more important than, possibly an older guy because you're going to have him longer. There's a lot of things that are in conversation when you talk about name, image, likeness, and the transfer portal. And what we're trying to do right now as a staff is put our thoughts together, put our minds together, and make the best possible decision for Ole Miss. Sometimes it's not just about talent. Sometimes it's not just about name, image, and likeness and whatever the number may be that people are talking about. It's got to be a little bit of everything. And at the end of the day, if a player's thoughts on what he's supposed to be doesn't match up with the staff's thoughts on what he's supposed to be once he gets here, then we both got problems. And so we try to be as truthful and honest as we can in recruiting. And then we try to, go back to our relationships, the strength of our relationships and those people trusting us, again, with their most prized possession. It's a huge responsibility. You have a lot of families out here that have invested a lot of time and money into these kids, from starting at age 5, 6 years old. They travel with them almost every weekend because of, travel basketball. And so when you got somebody that's investing in something, for that long, and have done that much, it's really, really hard, to try to get them to understand that, their son or their daughter, right, is maybe not, cut out for the job at hand. Right now, it's really, really hard to get those people to try to be patient. Which was, a big part of, the way I grew up playing basketball. Now everybody wants it right now. They want to see the success right now. And so, we attack it by being as truthful as we can. We attack it by, making some really, really good evaluations. And the people that we're bringing into our organization, they have to fit. Again, it's not just about talent with Chris Beard and what we're trying to do here. It's about collectively bringing in someone that fits, our culture. And you'll hear Beard talk about that a lot, but you have to be a little bit different to survive in our culture. And at the end of the day, we feel like our culture will get us to overachieve.
Very insightful. Thank you.
That's the best I can do.
That's why you're the coach.
That's what I cared about, Coach. So, just a couple more questions, I think, and we'll get to our full court press. But, you kind of talked about some of your recruiting and the idea of sitting down with the mom and dad and convincing them that, you're the one that's going to be able to take care and develop their son, or daughter into something. Looking at your own personal track record, that's something that you're able to back up, while you're at Auburn developing like the second and third ever one and dones of the program, Sharif Cooper, who we love, both of us love, JT Thor, and then some of the forwards that came through there, what was that experience like? What are those players like? What was it like developing those guys, and seeing them move on?
The one thing that made all those guys special, man, were, all of them were very, very humble, so to speak, considering, all the talk surrounding those guys. They were all very, very humble. They were all hard workers. They all loved basketball, man. Like you never had to, try to trick any of those guys to get in the gym and work on their craft. At the end of the day, you have to have a little bit of a competitive spirit too. And some of those guys had a little bit more competitive spirit than the other, right? But all of them were very, very competitive. I would say, man, that the biggest competitor that I've coached, so far, man, was Jabari Smith. Like he, no matter what you was doing, man, what you was competing in, man, he was trying to beat you. And that made him very, very special, man. He is the best college basketball player that I've ever coached. He brought it every day. You didn't have to worry about what you was gonna get with him. He wasn't sensitive to being coached. And he held himself accountable and he held himself to a high standard. Bruce Pearl didn't have to hold Jabari Smith to a high standard. He held himself to a high standard. But man, I had such a great experience at Auburn, man. Like coaching a lot of great players, even guys that people don't even talk about. Jared Harper, Bryce Brown. You know, the heart and soul of that Final 14, man. Those two guys, man, like they were undersized guys for their position. They wasn't heavily recruited coming out of high school. You know, Coach Pearl and his staff, they made a great evaluation on both of those guys. They both came from, you know, unbelievable support systems, and they got to Auburn, man. They just worked. But watching those two guys play was man, like listening to, you know, like Tupac, my favorite rapper, right? My favorite musician. Watching those two guys play was like, you know, listening to Tupac for me. And so, you know, just being around great players, man, for 5 years while I was at Auburn, enjoying that, you know, being around, you know, the winners program, you know, at Auburn, during that span. You know, it was good, man. I enjoyed it. And walking up on that stage, you know, in Minneapolis and being a part of Final Four was something even as a kid that I dreamed about. You know, I grew up, you know, a son of a Hall of Fame high school coach. I laid on the floor, man. We had one television in the household, and we watched whatever Pops was watching. You know, unless he was sleepy or, you know, he just didn't want to watch TV at that time. And more times than not, man, every year I would lay on that floor and watch the Final Four, man. I remember watching Michael Jordan hit his baseline shot, you know, at North Carolina. And so I always dreamed about playing in the Final Four. Obviously, I didn't play, man, but being on that staff, you know, it was the same feeling. And going out there with great players and great kids.
And then I think we have one more question for you, and then we're going to get into what we call full court press, where kind of we'll rapid fire a few personal questions just to get to know you better. You alluded to this a little bit when we were talking about recruiting, and you were talking about, you know, having to convince mom and dad to, you know, hey, you could trust me with your kid. Obviously, your son Allen played for you at Auburn. Now he's playing with you or playing for you at Ole Miss. How important and special is that to you as a coach and as a father?
It's really special, man. You know, I'm in this profession of you know, grooming other kids, right? You know, helping, you know, a mom or dad, you know, help their child you know, achieve a dream. You know, a lot of them, you know, at Auburn, you know, was to play in the NBA. You know, I've been in some JUCOs, I've been in some lower Division I programs, right? Some of it is, you know, just getting a college degree. But for me, man, to be with my son and see him each and every day, to watch him grow and develop like I've watched so many, you know, kids over my 25-year career, man, it's been special. I've missed a lot of time with him. I missed a lot of time with my other son, Colin, he's 15. I missed a lot of time with my oldest son, Michael, because I was on the road, you know, helping, you know, recruiting, or I was, you know, at the gym grooming another kid. And so, you know, to be able to, you know, be there and enjoy that same, uh, feeling and, you know, development with my own son, man, it's been special. You know, he's won a lot of games. You know, if he would have been at Auburn, you know, still this year, you know, he probably would have become one of the all-time winningest players, along with Jalen Williams, another kid I recruited, you know, during his college career. But I mean, he's here, man, at Ole Miss now. He's got new voices. It's a new journey for him. I'm really excited about, you know, our staff and Coach Beard and what they can do with his skill level and his skill set. You know, he's a special young man, as all of them are when they get to this level. There's not one kid in that locker room that's not elite. You know, when you get to this level, you have to be elite to get to the high major level, and all these guys are. But my son is unique. You know, he has pro potential. He's got great size. He's got, you know, NBA type athleticism. And I'm very proud of him. I'll say this, man. He earned a college degree from Auburn. I earned my degree from Auburn. We had a great experience there. But hearing him say the words, "I want to come to Ole Miss with you and Beard," when I didn't really entice him to do it, I didn't talk to him about it much. I kind of told him what I was doing, and he made the choice on his own. To hear that as a father, man, that, you've done your job, over the years. You know that we have a special relationship, even though sometimes we don't talk about it a lot. That definitely, man, made my heart. I'm just excited, man, and a little bit overwhelmed as the him and his decision to come here, because I really thought that he was going to want to turn pro, this spring, and give up his last year of college eligibility.
Okay, John, do you have the full court press questions up for Coach?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm ready to go.
You can take it away.
All right.
John,
yeah, I just want to say thanks.
I got a question
All
for
right.
you. What is that in the background, man? You got some snakes?
I do.
Well, I tell you what, man, my wife wouldn't want to mess with you at all. She is scared.
Man, nothing to worry about.
Last time we were in Mississippi, man, we had a snake crawl in our garage and kind of crawled up her tire in her car. And she sat outside in the garage, man, at like 115-degree temperatures for like 2.5 hours, because she was that afraid of that snake. All right. And I had to drive the car for 2 weeks just to get her back in it. And so that right there, I would like to take a picture of that and send it to her. Or maybe get her to visit you one day.
There you go. Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, man, that was a great interview. It's fun. You got me thinking about watching basketball with my dad when I was a kid, and we would lay down on the floor, and he was a Tar Heels fan. He would turn the TV on mute and turn on Woody Durham on the radio. We had to sit there and watch it like that and listen to it like that.
Yeah, it was good days, man. Now everybody got their own television. Nobody talks in the phone. Nobody has conversations no more. So,
all right. So we got these full court press questions, and what it is, it's like 8 or 10 questions, and we just, rapid fire, just ask us a question. Some of it's about basketball, some of it's about you, and so we'll just go ahead and throw it off. So for the first question, what's your favorite basketball memory?
My favorite basketball memory is, probably beating Arkansas when I was a player at Auburn. I think Arkansas was like a top 2 or 3 team. They were coming off a national championship with Corliss Williamson, Scotty Thurman, that whole crew. It was Saturday afternoon game. And, again, man, our team wasn't picked to do a lot that first year with Cliff Ellis. I played with a guy by the name of Moochie Norris and Pat Burke, Chris Davis, and some guys, teammates that I still communicate with now. And the Hogs came on the Plains, and we beat those guys by about 20 points. And the young boy 70 pounds ago had about 25 points, man. So that's probably the greatest memory, man. That was, Arkansas is my home state. And so to beat those guys, man, was an unbelievable feeling that day.
Yeah, I remember that team. Who's your all-time favorite player?
Oh, no doubt, Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan, hands down. Okay, I would say the person that I've seen in person that I thought was the greatest player that I've ever seen or played against, and I played against a lot of great players in the SEC, but I would have to get at Allen Iverson. I was a really good defender when I played, but that dude there made me feel like I had concrete in my shoes, man. He was so quick. But Michael Jordan, man, hands down, his competitive fire, his spirit, his ability to close out games, and then his creativity and his brand that he built, and maybe one of the first guys to, build a brand as strong as that still stands to this day, made him very special and number one in my heart.
All right. What is something most people probably don't know about you?
Oh man, I would say I love to watch television. I'm a movie guy. Netflix. So during COVID, right? COVID was great for me. man, I was able to enjoy life. You know, this college basketball thing, man, we rip and run all the time, and you know, we miss out on a lot of things. But during COVID, man, things slowed down. I actually, you know, got a great fondness of this thing called Netflix that I didn't know anything about before COVID. And man, I would just sit there on the couch, man, and just binge watch, man, like series. Like I had never seen Game of Thrones. I caught on the Game of Thrones during COVID, and it was like the sixth season or something like that. And I started that thing on season one, man. I would watch like 6 or 7 episodes in one day, just laying on the couch, right? So I'm actually, man, like a homebody, man. I like watching movies, man. I like hanging out with my family. And then I can kind of turn that off, man, when it's time for work.
Who's your coach and role model?
My dad, not even close. You know, my dad taught me. I was a guy, man, that watched the dude get up every day and devote his time and everything, man, to his family. And so, you know, not only that, but he devoted his time, man, to his players, and he mentored a lot of young men in the state of Arkansas and in Little Rock. And you know, to this day, you know, everything that I'm about, you know, is instilled in me through him, and obviously my mom being right beside him. So it'd be my dad.
All right. And if you had a superpower, what would it be?
Ooh, a superpower. Ah, I would say to disappear, to be invincible. I would like that, you know, just to kind of disappear, man, and watch people and them not be able to know I'm there. Yeah, that would be a great thing for me. I'm very observant, man. Like if you ever around me, man, you'll see me. I may be a little bit standoffish. I may be a little bit quiet, but I'm very observant of things that are around me. So that would be great for me, man, to be invincible and just be able to enjoy people and them not not realize I'm there.
All right. So when you were a player, what was your number and how did you choose it?
22. You know, again, man, everything about me involves around my dad. My dad was you know, a Division II, you know, NAIA All American. You know, probably had some opportunities, man, to play some professional basketball, but again, you know, he chose his family. But he wore 22 at home and 23 on the road. And I chose 22. And I think every team that I played on, man, except for maybe my middle school team when I was in the seventh grade, I think I had to wear number 12. But every team that I played on, I wore 22, whether it's football, basketball, baseball. I always had that number on. I wore it with a lot of pride.
I think you might have already answered this a little bit, but the best player you ever played with or against?
Yeah, it was AI. Wasn't even close. Not even close. You know, Randy Livingston was another great one. Before Randy's knees, man, he would probably be, you know, like Jason Kidd before Jason Kidd, point guard with a lot of size, a lot of creativity, great passer, great IQ. But AI was different, man. And a lot of people saw that during his career, man. He was about 5'11", probably about 165 pounds, soaking wet. But man, he played so much bigger. And when he caught the ball, man, there was no mercy, man. Like you could not take a play off with him. Anytime he caught the ball, you had to actually sit down and try to keep him from scoring. And then if you could do that, which was a huge, taller task, right? Then he may pass it. But every time, man, he would make you guard him. And that's what made him special, man. He was unmerciful on the offensive end.
All right. So going from there, who's the best player you've ever coached or coached against?
The best player I've ever coached was obviously Jabari Smith. Jared Harper would probably be right behind him. Our point guard on the Final 14. I would say coaching against. That's a tough one. Now I've coached against a lot of great players. There's not just one player that stands out. Um, you know, it's been a lot of great ones in the SEC. So I would just say a lot of guys. You know, some of the better players in the SEC throughout my history.
All right. And this is our last question. I think I might be able to answer it for you, but LeBron or Jordan?
Jordan. If LeBron, happens to win a couple of more championships, I think he definitely, falls into that argument. Obviously, man, he's the number one scorer in, professional basketball history in the NBA. He's so cerebral. He affects winning. We've never seen anything like LeBron, to be honest with you, with his size, his strength, and his speed and quickness. I think he's probably maybe the greatest athlete of all time, with that combination of size and speed. But for me, man, it still goes back to Mike, man. He was a special dude, man. Both of those guys are special in their own right, but I think all of those guys, Kobe, LeBron, all the guys that came after Mike, AI, they all reverse field and tip their hat to Michael Jordan.
All right. Well, that's it, man. That's the full court press, man. It's been awesome being able to listen to you, man, and sharing these stories with us and this wisdom with us. We really appreciate it, and we're looking
Man,
forward to seeing the
I
Rebs
appreciate
this year.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on, man. We're at work, and we hope to make this community, man, this university, in this state, very proud, man, of what we do here in the future with this team.
Of course. Again, thank you so much. This was super insightful. And John and I were high on the Ole Miss basketball program coming into this year before we had you on. Now, we have a vested interest in a sense now that we got to get to know you better, Coach. I'm marking on my calendar. I'm a Temple alumni. You guys are coming to Leacourt Center. So maybe you and I could link up then. But otherwise, this concludes this episode of the One and Done podcast. You guys could rate and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We just started our YouTube channel where we're doing player breakdowns and film breakdowns and interviews as well. So be on the lookout for those. Go subscribe to that. Add One and Done Pod on YouTube. And John and I will talk to you next episode. Thank you, Coach, again for coming on. And that's the end of this episode.
Thank you guys, man. Hotty toddy.